Welcome back to The Swordsmith. I'm your host, Pastor Richard, and today we're going to be getting into chapter 38 of Genesis, so let's dive right in. At that time, Judah left his brothers and stayed with an Adullamite man named Hiram. Now, just to stop there real quick, again, this happened right after they sold their brother Joseph into slavery, and so that's where it's picking up. So again, at that time, Judah left his brothers and stayed with an Adullamite man named Hiram. When Judah saw the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua, Judah acquired her as a wife. He had marital relations with her. She became pregnant and had a son. Judah named him She became pregnant again and had another son, whom she named Onan. Then she had yet another son, whom she named Shelah. She gave birth to him in Kezib. Judah acquired a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in Yahweh's sight, and Yahweh killed him. Then Judah said to Onan, "Have sexual relations with your brother's wife and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her so that she may raise up a descendant for your brother." But Onan knew that the child would not be considered his, so whenever he had sexual relations with his brother's wife, he withdrew prematurely so as to not give his brother a descendant. What he did was evil in Yahweh's sight, so Yahweh killed him too. So I'm going to pause here real quick. We're in the middle of the story. So back then, if you married a woman and you died before you were able to give her children, it was part of the customary law back then that your brother or another descendant, one of your brothers, would sleep with your now widowed wife so that she can have a son to continue on your lineage. So again, because Judah's firstborn, was evil, the Lord allowed him to be killed because of this. So Judah has Onan, his next son, tells him to sleep with Tamar so that she can at least have a son from Judah's line. From Judah's line. But because that child wouldn't belong to Onan, he would belong to Tamar and would be considered Er's son and his lineage. Onan didn't want to actually give her a child. So what Onan does is he has sex with her to act like he's doing the right thing, but he withdraws so that his, let's just get real, so that his semen doesn't actually end up inside of Tamar and she isn't able to have a child. So in essence, Onan is taking advantage of the fact that he gets to have sex with his sister-in-law, but is purposely trying not to fulfill it. So in essence, Onan is getting to have sex with Tamar, but he's not actually doing what he's supposed to be doing. So in a sort of colloquial way of putting it, Onan's being a player of sorts. He wants to have sex, but not actually do what it's for. So instead of having sex for the proper reason, he's just taking advantage of the situation so he can, quote, get some, if you want to put it bluntly. And so because of this, he's considered evil in Yahweh's sight also, because again, he's misusing what this was meant for. And so Yahweh allows him to be killed also. So verse 11, then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's house until Shelah, my son, grows up." So his third son grows up. for he thought, I don't want him to die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. So basically, Judah's assuming that somehow his first two sons have died because of something to do with Tamar, instead of realizing that his sons were just evil and the Lord allowed them to be killed because of that. Verse 12, after some time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. After Judah was consoled, he left for Timnah to visit his sheep shearers, along with his friend Hiram the Adullamite. Tamar was told, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's clothes and covered herself with the veil. She wrapped herself and sat at the entrance of Enaim, which is on the way to Timnah. She did this because she saw that she had not been given to Shelah as a wife, even though he had now grown up. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she had veiled her face. So again, to pause, what's happening now is Tamar realizes that Judah's trying to pull one on her and not allow her to receive what she's owed under the law. So what she's doing is veiling herself, which is something that prostitutes normally did, because she's now hoping to trick, as we're going to see, trick Judah. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. He turned aside to her along the road and said, come on, I want to have sex with you. He did not realize it was his daughter-in-law. She asked, what will you give me in exchange for having sex with me? He replied, I'll send you a young goat from the flock, he asked. Will you give me a pledge until you send it? He said, what pledge should I give you? She replied, your seal, your cord, and your staff that's in your hand. So he gave them to her and had sex with her. She became pregnant by him. She left immediately, removed her veil, and put on her widow's clothes. So she literally tricks Judah into having sex with her by making him think that she's a prostitute. Now, again, there might be some confusion thinking that, well, she's not doing the right thing by tricking him. And under normal circumstances, it would be true. But because the circumstance says that that she's supposed to be given a son through the line to continue the line of Judah, actually, this is an instance of where the Lord is allowing her to do this, and her trickery is actually just her way of getting what's already owed to her. So she's actually, while it might seem strange, she's not doing something wrong. She's simply doing what must be done to get what is owed to her. And she's really not actually hurting anybody in the process. And that's the big thing. Sometimes, and we see it all over the Old Testament, God allows certain things to happen to certain people. And on the surface, they may look like one person's doing a bad thing, but in reality, what looks to us humans as something bad is actually just getting what's already owed them. And so we have to be careful sometimes about saying whether something is good or bad when it's the Lord allowing something to happen. Sometimes things are bad, and in most cases, what she was doing would be considered bad. But in this case, again, it's not, because she was actually owed this thing. Verse 20, then Judah said to her friend Hiram, the Adullamite, take a young goat to get back from the woman the items he had given in the pledge. But Hiram could not find her. He asked the men who were there, where is the cult prostitute who was at Enaim by the road? But they replied, there is no cult prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I could not find her. Moreover, the men of the place said, there has been no cult prostitute here. Judah said, let her keep the things for herself, otherwise we will appear to be dishonest. I did indeed send this young goat, but could not find her. So again, she took something as a pledge that she was going to get paid, and Judah tried in what his eyes were do the right thing to pay her so that he could get his stuff back again. Judah was still doing the wrong thing, even though it ended up giving what was right. So as we continue, we'll see what happens here. After 3 months, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has turned to prostitution, and as a result, she has become pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." While they were bringing her out, she sent word to her father-in-law, "I am pregnant by the man whom these belong." Then she said, "Identify the one to whom the seal, cord, and staff belong." Judah recognized them and said, "She is more upright than I am, because I wouldn't give her to Shelah, my son. He did not have sexual relations with her again." So basically, what ends up happening is Judah finds out she's pregnant. He's ready to have her burned for prostitution. And she sends the things that he had given her to him and says, these belong to the person who is the father. And Judah recognizes that they're his things and immediately realizes that she had tricked him, but she was actually doing the right thing because Judah was the one who was failing to do his duty and let his last son sleep with her to give her a son. So Judah realizes, not only did I hire somebody for prostitution, but I was being tricked. It was actually my daughter-in-law, and she's actually doing the right thing because she's getting what she's owed out of it, and I'm the one who's in the wrong here, not she. When it was time for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. While she was giving birth, one child put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But then he drew back his hand, and his brother came out before him. She said, "How you have broken out of the womb." So he was named Perez. Afterward, his brother came out, the one who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was named Zerah. So again, just to reiterate, this is a perfect example of sometimes what we as humans would consider to be doing the wrong thing in very specific situations sometimes isn't actually doing a bad thing. It's not actually a sin because it's getting what was owed in the first place. And again, this is an example of God knows what's best. God allows certain things to happen for a reason. And sometimes the way God works, if we're acting like humans, which we are, if we're doing the wrong thing, sometimes God allows things to happen that we would think are wrong, but in the actual totality of the situation are the right thing. So we have to be very careful about putting blanket statements on whether something is right or wrong just because we think it is. God's higher than that. He has higher ways than that. And it's not our place to judge situations. Again, this gets into the discussion of discernment versus judgment. It's one thing to discern that something isn't exactly right. It's another thing to cast judgment and say, well, this is what you need to pay for it. Judah was willing to cast judgment when he was actually the one who caused this whole situation to happen. Discernment is not a bad thing. Judgment belongs to the Lord, and that's important. Now we continue chapter 39. Now Joseph, so we're going back to Joseph now. Again, he's in Egypt as a slave. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt. An Egyptian named Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh, and the captain of the guard, purchased him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. Yahweh was with Joseph. He was successful and lived in the household of his Egyptian master. His master observed that Yahweh was with him and that Yahweh had made everything he was doing successful. So Joseph found favor in his sight and became his personal attendant. Potiphar appointed Joseph overseer of his household and put him in charge of everything he owned. From the time Potiphar appointed him over his household and over all he owned, Yahweh blessed the Egyptian's household for Joseph's sake. The blessing of Yahweh was on everything that he had, both in his house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. He gave no thought to anything except the food he ate. So again, Lord is blessing Joseph. He's with him. Joseph's master sees that clearly he has favor, so he appoints him over everything. And now Potiphar's household is receiving favor because Joseph is the one in charge. Now Joseph was well built and good looking. Soon after these things, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Have sex with me." But he refused, saying to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not give any thought to his household with me here, and everything that he owns he has put in my care. There is no one greater in this household than I am. He has withheld nothing from me except you because you are his wife. So how could I do such an great evil and sin against God?" Even though she continued to speak to Joseph day after day, he did not respond to her invitation to have sex with her. So Potiphar's wife is trying to seduce Joseph, and he continues to refuse because he realizes that while he has been put over everything in the house, it would still be an evil thing to sleep with Potiphar's wife. And Joseph is doing the morally right thing, but she continues to try to seduce him. Verse 11, one day he went into the house to do his work when none of the household servants were there in the house. She grabbed him by his outer garment, saying, "Have sex with me." But he left his outer garment in her hand and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his outer garment in her hand and run outside, she called for her household servants and said to them, "See, my husband brought a Hebrew man to humiliate us. He tried to have sex with me, but I screamed loudly. When he heard me raise my voice and scream, he left his outer garment beside me and ran outside. So she laid his outer garment beside her until his master came home. This is what she said: "That Hebrew slave you brought to us tried to humiliate me, but when I raised my voice and screamed, he left his outer garment and ran outside." So again, she's mad that Joseph won't have sex with her. So this time, because his garment was left behind, she tries to turn it around and lies and says that he had tried to rape her and that he took off when she screamed, and she ended up with his outer garment left behind. When his master heard his wife say, "This is the way your slave treated me," he became furious. Joseph's master took him and threw him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. So he was there in prison. But Yahweh was with Joseph and showed him kindness. He granted him favor in the sight of the prison warden. The warden put all of the prisoners under Joseph's care. He was in charge of whatever they were doing. The warden did not concern himself with anything that was in Joseph's care because Yahweh was with him, and whatever he was doing, Yahweh was making him successful. So we see that, and this happens even today to us, where we may be doing the right thing, but that doesn't mean that something evil doesn't come against us. And so something evil comes against Joseph. He ends up in prison because he did the right thing. And again, that happens sometimes to us today, but Joseph is a great example of, even when he did the right thing and still had something evil come against him, he still continues to do the right thing. He doesn't choose to do evil. And so we should take that example and look to do the same. Even if we're doing everything right and something evil comes against us, we need to remember that it's the Lord who is in charge, and he's the one who's blessing us, and we need to continue to do the right thing no matter what our circumstances are. Chapter 40, verse 1. After these things happened, the cupbearer to the king of Egypt and the royal baker offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was enraged with his two officials, the cupbearer and the baker, so he imprisoned them in the house of the captain of the guard in the same facility where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be their attendant, and he served them. They spent some time in custody, both of them, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, had a dream the same night. Each man's dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were looking depressed. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were with him in custody in his master's house. "Why do you look so sad today?" They told him, "We both had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph responded, "Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me." So I'm going to pause here real quick. So it says that the cupbearer and the baker offended their master, who was Pharaoh. Back then, the cupbearer was somebody who would test the king or the Pharaoh's food and drink before it got to him in case somebody was trying to poison him. So if the cupbearer fell ill or died, the king wouldn't end up dying from that poison. So while it's not explicitly said here, there's a high probability that the Pharaoh got sick and assumed that somebody had tried to poison him and it hadn't fully worked. And so the reason that it's the cupbearer and the baker are because they're the two people that would have had access to the Pharaoh's food. So the Pharaoh is more likely offended because he became sick and thinks that one of them tried to poison him. So they're both being put in prison. Now they both had dreams. Joseph's willing to interpret the dreams because he believes that they belong to God and that God will help him answer them. So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. "In my dream, there was a vine in front of me. On the vine, there were 3 branches. As it budded, its blossoms opened and its clusters ripened into grapes. Now Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. So I took the grapes, squeezed them into the cup, and put them in the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is its meaning," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches represent 3 days. In 3 more days, Pharaoh will reinstate you and restore you to your office. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you did before, where you were cupbearer. But remember me when it goes well for you, and show me kindness. Make mention of me to Pharaoh and bring me out of the prison. For I really was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and I have done nothing wrong here for which they should put me into a dungeon." When the chief baker saw the interpretation of the first dream was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I also appeared in my dream, and there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. In the top basket, there were baked goods of every kind for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them from the basket that was on my head. Joseph replied, "This is its meaning. The 3 baskets represent 3 days. In 3 more days, Pharaoh will decapitate you and impale you on a pole. Then the birds will eat your flesh from you. On the 3rd day, it was Pharaoh's birthday, so he gave a feast for all his servants. He lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker in the midst of his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so that he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he impaled, just as Joseph had predicted. But the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him." So Joseph interprets their dreams. First, he interprets the cupbearers, and it's something favorable. When the baker sees that the interpretation is favorable, he thinks that Joseph is just going to give him something favorable too as an interpretation. But Joseph interprets the meaning of the baker's dream to be something bad, that the baker was going to die. Again, this doesn't get into anything other than God revealed to Joseph these things that were in these dreams as a way to show that Joseph was favored by God. So Joseph does tell the chief cupbearer, when you're restored, please put in a good word for me with Pharaoh because I was actually kidnapped and I've done nothing wrong that I should be in jail. And so he just asked that one thing of the cupbearer, and the cupbearer forgets, as soon as he's restored, the cupbearer forgets about Joseph. At least for now, we'll find out. We're going to leave off there today, but again, this is just more examples of the favor that was on Joseph. Joseph continued to do the right thing, even when evil things were happening to him. And we should all strive to be like Joseph. When things are not going the way we want them to go, we need to continue to rely on what God has done for us and what he's going to do for us, and to do the right thing. And as we see with Joseph, we see that he continues to receive favor from God because he's doing the right things. Just because we have favor from God does not always mean that it's going to be peaches and cream. Everything's just going to be easy for us. Things will sometimes still be hard. Other times things will start to go the right way. And we'll see next week that the Lord has been working and things will eventually turn around for Joseph. So I'm going to leave off there today. I just want to pray for you. Lord, I just ask that you would be manifest and seen in the life of those listening and watching today, that whether they're going through good times or hard times, Lord, that you would encourage them and remind them that in all these things, good or bad, you are in control. You are working things out for their good. And that as long as they continue to rely on you and look to you, you will uphold them and you will help them finish the race. We praise you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Again, thank you for tuning in. As always, if you'd like to send me an email with questions or comments, you can do that at richard@hsbn.tv. If you need prayer for anything, we have our 24-hour prayer line with people waiting to pray for you. That's 1-877-588-1664. That's 1-877-588-1664. Thank you for tuning in. Continue to be blessed by the Lord, and I'll see you next week.